And we are on the air.
Hello.
Hey, you bring that energy, man. I'll tell you what.
I wasn't sure if you were going to start or if I was going to start. It's like you've done it like that. You started the last two ones, and like the last one, I just jumped right in and started it, and then I'm like midway through, I'm like, you know what? Justin normally starts, and I just walked all over him. So.
Oh yeah. Well, we can let's figure that out because I've always figured this as you being the host, right?
I don't know. Rules and structures and.
Yeah. What's up? Fashion.
Yeah,
oh man, this stupid.
This is the Creative Podcast. We don't have a better name for it, so that's what we're calling it because we're not that creative apparently. I'm Andrew Main, and this is Justin Robert Young, and the podcast is designed to talk about creativity, being an artist, being a creator, being a producer. It comes from our experiences across the board. You know, Justin is a prolific podcaster, 2 #1 comedy albums, as well as having a background in journalism. Justin has overseen the iTricks Magic News site for years, Weird Things. He's done a lot of content there. He's written Go Home Santa, You're Drunk, a collection of short stories about Christmas time, and just a lot of stuff. And he's worked with me on a number of our endeavors. I do a show on A&E called Don't Trust Andrew Main, and Justin has been involved with helping me develop stuff for television for the last 8 years, and actually I've known him even longer, and he's helped me with little film projects we've done that we've taken to film festival, and every book that I've put out, every book that I've done has had Mr. Justin Robert Young's able help with, and and the acknowledgments of my book Angel Killer, right after my obligatory family, I point out my additional family course. I say Justin Robert Young for its essential help at every stage of this book.
That is amazing. By the way, yeah, hold up. Go ahead. Hold up that book real quick. Let's go talk. Say something so Google switches to you.
This is a galley copy. So this is what the publisher will print in certain cases of books, an advanced copy that they then give out to reviewers, to book buyers, etc. So HarperCollins put together this. It's got kind of a slightly different cover because it talks about the marketing campaign, etc. I'm going to be going to Book Expo America this week, which is going to be in New York City, on behalf of HarperCollins and Bourbon Street Books, which is the division there. My editor's Hannah Wood. She's fantastic, and so we're going to be talking about the book, and she'll be talking about other stuff they're involved with too. But I'm excited, and I think I'm going to go by. I think there's BookCon, which is a book convention set within Book Expo, which I'll be at. So they put together galleys. They send this out because the goal is they want to get bookstores and places like that to purchase the book and to have it available for people. And this is the advanced copy, the galley copy. And after this, they then do the big, huge print run of the book. But that is the book, and it's interesting because I've been publishing magic books for almost 20 years now. I started when I was very, very, very young. Magic books.
You were doing that at and I think we covered this in the first beta version of this, but like you have been finding a way and making your own way in terms of publishing, since you were in your teens or early 20s.
My first stuff was published by other people when I was a teen in magic books, and so I've been involved in this for years. So the thrill of seeing your own book in print is probably diminished for me, and I'm thrilled. I'm proud of this because this is the collaborative effort of myself, my fantastic editor Hannah Wood, the help of my literary agent. She's great, and it's great because it's great to see this in this form. But I love e-publishing. I love doing that, and so having it in one form or another I don't feel like this legitimizes me in any way, because I think the only way you're legitimized is, one, to yourself when you sit back and you're happy with what you've done, and two, when somebody else sits and reads what you've done and enjoys what you've done. It's great to be published. It's great to have things like that. But I genuinely, the thing that means I would much rather have, 1,000 people read my ebook and love it than 100,000 copies sit on a shelf in a bookstore that nobody buys.
But this is, this is the creative podcast. The point of us wanting to do stuff is that we create things and we marvel at each new creation that we make. This creation that you are holding in your hands as a galley copy looks unlike other stuff that you've done, because especially in terms of narrative fiction, everything that you've done, if there are printed copies, have been a wholly Andrew Mayne created enterprise by way of another, a publishing option. But this is the same book that you will see in bookstores, which is really rad.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, this is going to be, when this is a collaboration between me and the people I mentioned and one of the largest book publishers in the world. That's an exciting thing. And so I'm very, very thrilled by that. And it's neat to see, that's a cover. The wonderful artist who designed that did a great job, did great design of the book. And it's cool to see something that looks far, far better than my amateurish efforts that I've done on my own. But, it's all part of the journey. It's all part of getting there. So I'm excited. The design is by Fritz Metsch. He's the one who did this and did really neat interior layout, whatever. It's a very well designed book. You go there, and then the interior, and then there's the thing. One actually went out and shot photos of statues of angels and etc. to do the book. So
that's amazing. Now listen, for everybody who's watching, you're wondering what the hell is this show? I've never seen it before. I've never heard of it. Here's what we will do for you. We will talk about your creative questions. Do you want to do a podcast, a book, music, movies, whatever? If you have a creative endeavor and you are running into roadblocks, because as me and Andrew can tell you, the art of creation is running into and getting over roadblocks. That is the entire point. We are not experts. We are merely just people on the road like you are, and hopefully, being a little bit further down, we can offer any kind of advice or just share our own experiences of going through certain difficulties. So
or having approaches that apply to something very different. So if you have a question, send it to creative, subject line creative at andrew@andrewmayne.com. Andrew@andrewmayne.com. I think I may have creative aid. I forgot which one it is, but send it to andrew@andrewmayne.com right now. I'll check in there. I want to talk about something for a moment. We just finished recording the Weird Things podcast, and if you follow my Twitter or my YouTube or my Tumblr, you've seen me rave about this, but I want to drill down into a point I think is specific to talking about creativity. I've always loved them, and I just started collecting more of them, is pop-up books. And I'm going to pan over to the table, and you can see I've got quite a few pop-up books sitting on my coffee table. And part of it is that I'm working on a children's book right now, and it's not a pop-up book itself, but it's kind of a lot of the things I'm writing into the book are these things that create delight and joy and wonder. And pop-up books are like that. They're just amazing. And I just got the pop-up version of The Jungle Book, and this is by Matthew Reinhart, who's by far the most amazing. I got to show you. You haven't seen this yet, Justin. Let me see this. I love monkeys. And you know what I love more than monkeys?
What do you love more than monkeys?
A lot of monkeys.
What? That's so many monkeys. Now, what book is this from?
This is from The Jungle Book, and so this is when, like, the temple with the apes crawling all over the temple. It's amazing. So it just says, boom, pops up. This is like twice as tall as the book. It is incredible. So Matthew Reinhart's been a designer. He worked with Robert Sabuda for a while. Now he's doing most of his own. He's been designing pop-up books for a considerable amount of time, and they're innovative. They're not just you pull the tab, something happens, things leap out at you, things move, they're animated. His pop-up books are like anything else I've ever seen. And he just did a Game of Thrones one. If you go to my Tumblr, andrewmayne.tumblr.com, you can see me geek out about it. It covers up the entire coffee table as you see all the different lands. He took something that was, kind of a thing. We go, oh yeah, pop-up books, those are kind of cool. And he took it and he elevated. And there are other artists working in the medium. And I've seen some stuff from like Thailand and Japan that are really elaborate. I think his is probably the best there is, but there may be stuff out there I'm not aware of. But he took a form of art that people didn't even really necessarily acknowledge was art. He took an area that was considered as sort of a children's book type thing, and he took the idea of making things leap out from the page, and got into paper engineering in such a way that he's created things, he's made it better. I could show you a pop-up book. I've got a couple pop-up books. You go, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
If I sit this in front of you or sit with FaceTime and I show you some of these books or what he's done, everybody's amazed. Everybody's absolutely amazed.
Well, they're amazing, and what's great about that, the creations that you've shown me of his work, is that it's not necessarily even just the work itself, which is fascinating, but also something so intricate that you have a hard time understanding exactly how it's replicated. Like on a mass market scale. This isn't just, you or me writing a bunch of words and having it printed on pages. This is very, very, very particular kind of craftsmanship that you look at and your brain says, this is rare workmanship. How could it be sold at every Barnes and Nobles from here to Kalamazoo?
Yeah, that's just kind of one more incredible part of it. It's not just that he figured out how to make this jump out of the page. He figured out how to make it out of paper, how to make it fold flat, and then how to have people construct this in Thailand or what have you, and make it mass produce it, which is just incredible. All the challenges he had to solve. But what I want to talk about is the idea that he took an area that not a lot of people had really thought about, like, how can I make this that much better?
Yeah.
How can I make this really special? How can I make a pop-up book that was unlike anything else you've seen? And there are other people working in this medium who are doing some clever stuff, but it's not a lot. It's not a thing that you start talking about wonderfully and creative artistic endeavors that somebody will say, what's really cool is pop-up books.
Yeah.
But
it's not exactly a sexy medium.
But I guarantee you that, you sit down with one of these, and anybody, you pop it open, everybody's, it's like a magic trick that unfolds before you. Everybody's amazed, but it's a great example of you can choose something that nobody else is doing that has a sense of wonder about it, that has a sense of a little bit of delight, and you can exceed it. A great example is Apple. They decided to do that with a number of their products. They talk about, the iPhone. It wasn't just going to be a list of features this thing did. The purpose of the iPhone was to certainly do things, but they wanted to do something that gave you delight. Amazon. When Amazon and Zappos, companies like that, they talk about, we love the idea of delight when you open up the package. We want you to smile and not just be like, hey, I got it, like, ooh, I got it before I expected in the case of Zappos. The idea of what can you do to plus it or make it all that much better. And you'll find there's a lot of ripe territory for that to really push the envelope nobody else has thought about. And
so
that's
when you're approaching something like that, I mean, like, what would you say the closest that you've come of taking a look at a medium and saying, this is something that I feel I have a good enough handle on to know what it is to elevate it?
Be personally?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that, I would certainly say that in my magic, I knew that I have a very offbeat sense of humor and my imagination works in a different place, and I thought that I can apply my love of things that are unusual but feel normal, and not just odd for the sake of odd, and I could apply it. Like, when I did a close-up show at the Magic Castle and you were there, I'm like, oh, I love Bigfoot. Why not have Bigfoot be my assistant?
Yes.
What can I do?
Find Bigfoot.
We found Bigfoot.
The show.
And it's like, what can I do what can I throw in there that's not just related to how to make the trick neat, but how to make the experience special? And, it's certainly in writing, the thing that I try to do now is I start with an outline, I tell the story, and then I look back and I go paragraph through paragraph, say, is there a better way to tell this? Can I add some little detail here? If I'm in somebody's office and there's something interesting about this person that may play out later on, can I tell you a little bit of thing that later on you go, ooh, that was in there, and it folds back onto itself?
I would say for watching your process, it's very often you don't go into something and say, well, hey, I want to write a book, and let me just think about the best possible book that I could write. That's certainly part of it, but also it's you understanding where the consumer is going to look at it, and where when somebody buys a pop-up book, for I forget what's the artist name that does the
Matthew Reinhardt.
Matthew Reinhardt. When Matthew Reinhardt does that, he, I would assume, understands what their expectations are for a pop-up book when he's designing what he's doing, because it's only when you know where those expectations are that you can exceed them, or you understand where to exceed them and what's impressive and what's not. When you've done magic effects, a lot of elements have gone into where is this different than what other things on the market are. Not on a marketing level of like we need to hit the soft spot. I mean, certainly that's there, but more on the creative level. What's worthwhile? What are people going to look at and actually use? And I know for us, we've had a lot of conversations, magic-wise, about materials, time of preparation, how much, who this is going to apply to. And if it's a 14-year-old kid who has nothing but enthusiasm for Magic, is he actually going to be able to do this when he's, his parents are split up and he didn't really have a ton of money to do it, can buy his own creativity and just a little bit of money, can he put something together? And that, I think, is an element of understanding where you are.
Yeah, in creating magic tricks, and you talk about like pleasing the audience or the thing, it starts with what do I want to do that I bring that's different to the table. And I either try to take something that, in Magic we have what's called impromptu, and that's the idea of I borrow a pen from you and I perform a magic trick. That's impromptu. If I pull the pen from my pocket and perhaps it's prepared or does something special, that's not impromptu because maybe I need a gimmick. And so I either try to create stuff that's impromptu where I can just take something, borrowed objects, and do something incredible that other magicians would have used gimmicks for, or when it comes to large props or apparatus of illusions, try to make them out of very simple materials. I have a way to cut yourself in half using cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
I can how to show you how to levitate using a broom and a towel. And that's one of the things I do. And I think in the case of Reinhardt, what he wants to do is every book he wants to sort of do something he did before. Now he has limitations there. The problem he has to work with is I guarantee if we gave this guy an X-Acto blade and some cardboard, he could create the most incredible things in the world. But as you pointed out, he then has to have a publisher that's going to pay for this thing to be produced. And he's got to make sure that somebody sitting in a factory somewhere in the middle of Asia can reproduce what he's doing and they can make this a consumer product. And so he has to deal with these limitations. But within those constraints, he's trying to innovate and set things forward. And his Star Wars pop-up books, the first one was utterly fantastic. The second one went beyond that and exceeded that. And I'll show you just an example. And you kind of wonder, how do you follow this up? In the case of, in telling the story of Star Wars, pardon me, much of it deals with the fact that there's a guy named Anakin who becomes Darth Vader after becoming horribly disfigured. And as I open this book, you see the face of Anakin Skywalker and then Darth Vader's helmet descend over it.
So there are these living illustrations, these living movements of this evolving picture that really feeds into the mythos of the story. It's not just movement for the sake of movement or some kind of whiz-bang flash to make it look better. This makes sense in terms of the story.
When I saw that a few years ago when it first came out, and my jaw hit the floor because I'm like, wow, I just felt like, oh, look, it's Darth Vader's head. And then I opened it more slowly and realized the artist, I didn't know who Matthew Reinhardt was at that point. I said, he created something where I'm watching a transition. He has put some detail in here that just far exceeds. For the second Star Wars book he did, he actually has a different transformation where you watch Anakin change into Vader, and the lightsaber changes color, etc. And it's brilliant. It's this huge thing that pops up there, and so there's a lot of stuff in here that's just, you open up to the first page, and it's the pod race, and it looks, looking on video here, it looks like it's like models sitting on there, and it just jumps out at you. You feel this is better than 3D. You're really in that experience, and each time he elevates it. So when he did the Game of Thrones book, he made something that was natural to the story of Game of Thrones. He created, these pop-ups, and then the entire book unfolds. So you unfold the entire book, and you have a map of Westeros and Essos. It's incredible, and so I love that, and I take inspiration from that as an artist. Right now, I'm writing a children's story, and I want to make it filled with wonder and surprises and little details here and there. And as I write, I've been making notes of like, go back to the last chapter when you're done writing the whole thing and add in this, this, and this. Go back there, change this, and I want, because I want to keep plussing it and adding on to it, and I want to make it as filled with wonder as I can, that as you read the story, little things unfold, things that you saw before become more important, and little things get mentioned that are things that you might want to think about and go, oh, wow, that's curious. What would I do if I had that? Or I wonder where that goes, or whatever.
Well, listen, I think there is a great lesson to be learned about understanding what you are doing and who you are releasing it to and what they think of what you would be releasing it to, that can inform every element of creativity and getting if you want to exceed expectations, which I think we all do.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask anybody, do you want to exceed expectations or not exceed expectations, they will say they would like to exceed them. If that is what you want to do, you need to know what they are beforehand, and you need to understand why people think of them as what they expect.
And I guess the thing that I think for people out there, looking for what they want to do, you can certainly pick some area that may be neglected. Pick some aspect of something, and you can go into it and say, maybe I can make this 1,000 times better. In Magic, I see a lot of people trying to do the same thing everybody else has done.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do the same thing that's been done before. In children's books, everybody wanted to write, when Harry Potter was big, everybody wanted to write Harry Potter. When Twilight was big, everybody wanted to write, it's young adult, wanted to write Twilight. Everybody wanted to do that. But if you take some area that nobody else is doing but has potential for greatness and you choose it for yourself, you could potentially do amazing things because nobody's applied that kind of creativity or engineering to it. The guy who did, Matthew Reinhart could probably work for SpaceX and design solar panels that would be great. He chose this, and
and the world of pop-ups are better for it.
Yeah, the rest of the world maybe not so much, but that was his choice. There's so many different areas you could apply it to and say this, and nobody's trying to make this better, and this has the potential to be great. And it's hard to take something that just is inherently boring and make it great. So, first question comes from S. White says, you told me once that you made $6 profit per book from the sales of print versions of the indie film book. I don't think I make that much money from them. Then she says, you said you made 30 cents per copy from Amazon ebooks. Yeah, they're like priced at like 99 cents or so, yeah. Do you profit more from sale when your book is published by someone like HarperCollins, or is it only beneficial for exposure and credibility to hopefully sign bigger deals in the future? She writes, I ask you these things because the numbers make the decision for me on how much time I'm willing to dedicate to writing. When I'm 55, I'll have time to write for no reason. But right now, time is money. Nothing's demand my time. I've watched you profit little by little from writing until it adds up a lot over time, and the profit from intellectual property continues to play indefinitely, even at a trickle. I know that. But anyways, this is why I ask. It's not that I'm being nosy. So, I make less when you do a book deal. When HarperCollins puts this book out, I make less percentage. The standard industry rates are like 7.5% or 10% or whatever for it's like 7 to 15% or something from like paperbacks versus hardcovers, etc. You make far, far less of that when you go with the publisher because the publisher is going to get the lion's share of the profit. They also have their own version of financial risk. There's time you spent, but they have a big financial risk. So you make less per copy, even in the ebook version. The ebook version that HarperCollins releases, I've pulled my ebook version of Angel Killer so HarperCollins can release their version in September. I'll make less money off of the ebook of that. But what I'm banking on is that HarperCollins, being HarperCollins, and having inroads into places that I don't have, into traditional booksellers, being able to contact all the different people who are involved in publicizing or talking about books, I'm making a bet that they will do a better job of it than I have. Well, I did a great, this book sold over 100,000 copies on my own. I think I took this about as far as I possibly could. Now, I'm letting HarperCollins say, well, we think we can do great with it in print. We think we can do it beyond that. And so I've already made my money with this book.
And it's really not like you're giving anything up per se past, in your mind, you already had a tremendously successful independent run that was totally yours, and now what you are giving up, quote unquote, for HarperCollins is them controlling it past now versus what you would have done with it beyond the point that you sold it, right?
Yeah, I don't look at it as what I make per book. I look at what I think I'll be able to do overall, and I want to be a guy that you go into bookstores and you see my stuff on shelves. I want to be a guy you walk into Walgreens and see my books there, which a very few number of people get it. That's my goal, is I want to have books that make it to there. I cannot do that on my own unless I want to spend a considerable amount of time doing that as opposed to writing. There's a balance. There are self-published ebook authors. I did great. I've made a very good living through ebook publishing. Very happy with that. I have a pattern that worked well for me. I could continue that and be comfortable doing that, but I want to try to take it to the next level, which involves partnering with people. Now, so I don't look at it as how much I make per book. I look at like, will this person then increase my sales exponentially? Will this help build my brand and et cetera? And HarperCollins has been great to me. I get to go to Book Expo. They're promoting me there. I'm going to be at the American Libraries Association. They've been very great at getting behind me. Especially so for a first-time author.
Can I make a point though about this? You have always had a big picture in mind when it's come to writing. You have always thought from the result backwards on what you want to write, what you feel comfortable writing, what you're good at writing, what you want to get better at writing. This has always been a part of the plan. However, even for somebody who has as much of a top-down plan as you have, you've always taken it one step at a time in terms of the process. The goals there, the goals of where you want to be and how you think you can get there have always been there. The path is laid out, but the work is what matters, and the options that are generated from that work is where you can guide yourself based on your plan. So it to me, it is a mistake beyond having a good, a big scale plan to get too locked into, I don't want to create certain kind of stuff because I'm too locked into one specific path to success.
Well,
oftentimes there's many different ways that can go.
Yeah, and to White's question about should I do this or should she do this or should she do something else for financially, yeah, don't do this. This is not a wise plan for making money, because some people make money at it doesn't mean that everybody will make money at it. And there are much better ways. If I've always chose the things I want to do, not the things that are going to make me rich. If I wanted to be rich, I would have, become an investment banker, when back in the day, there are much better ways to do that. And if I wanted all I wanted to be was rich right now, I would be doing different things than I do. But I've always been served very well by following my creative passions and working and being able to be comfortable. I'm a person that I have a nice life and I do the things I want to do. And right now, I'm heading to New York to go promote Angel Killer, but I'm spending the next few days before then writing this children's book that it may never see an audience, but I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. I'm doing the thing that I want to do. I'm not writing something because I'm like, oh, this will be a bestseller. Oh, this will be this. I mean, I hope a lot of people like it, but I write it because I want to write.
Absolutely, and that's what makes sense. And also, it's like, what somebody might say is, oh, you want to be published by a publisher? Well, then write it and find a book agent and submit it to a publisher. And that wasn't necessarily how you wanted to go about things. You wanted to make sure it got out there. You wanted to make sure you found an audience. You knew that you're going to be in a stronger position when you had a book that theoretically would sell well independently, or at least, demonstrate a legacy of quality from producing several ebooks. Things wound up working well for you. But it's not about how you get there, I guess, is kind of what I think. That there's a great understanding in flexibility of being able to understand, just focus on the work, focus on what makes you happy.
Exactly. You say some people can be very, very particular to the point that they're very narrow and they're never going to get what they want. And you have to say, what do you want? And be in broad enough terms that you can hit that in different ways. I want to tell stories. I want to work creatively. I want to be able to support myself doing that, and I have an idea of how I want to do that. If that's my goal, so financial, how I make money doing that is the secondary part. I figure out what do I want to do, how do I fit that into what I know about how to make a living, etc. And so we had a model for ebooks. I had a model for how to make money with ebooks that I followed, based in part, the model they had for how to make money doing magic DVDs, etc., and everything else. And these things have worked well. But if your goal is just purely financial, this is a stupid thing to do. It's a dumb. There
are many smarter ways to make money.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's dumb. I mean, it's most people will fail.
There are probably even smarter ways to make money writing. You can probably write for a living doing stuff that you don't want to do. That's a lot more financially lucrative.
Yeah, well, a lot of writers looking for that, but yeah. There are millions of people who would love to make a living trying to do this, and there are tens of thousands of books uploaded on Amazon every month or so by people who are trying to crack into this or whatever, and it makes for a lot of noise. And the end of the thing is like, no, it's you've got to have a bigger plan. So Andrew Core, good friend of the show, writes on this. He's noticing my latest obsession with pop-up books. What would go into the Andrew Mayne pop-up book designed and created by Matthew Christian Reinhardt?
Aha.
Well, I guess you're assuming that I'm not going to try to design my own pop-up book, which I've actually done before, mind you.
Okay.
I remember. I even remember the trick Castlemania.
I do.
I came up with a magic which was basically looked like a big card tower that was like a thing that folded up in the size of a deck of cards that would boom pop into something bigger. But what would be great is what the most fun pop-up books here are ones where you have these amazing worlds. So you pick up a Star Wars pop-up book and it becomes a new medium to explore Star Wars in. Game of Thrones is kind of a literal representation of the map. It's technically just brilliant and amazing, and I unfold on my coffee table and I go, wow. For me, I would either want to do something that like a really, really fun way to teach magic. I'd love to do a magic instructional pop-up book that really used the medium, though, and the book could perhaps become some of the props. The book could perhaps it'd either be something that would teach you or it'd be magic. Either two books. One could be a magic book that just performs magic. And I think there's been actually, now that I think about it, I think somebody's done a magic pop-up book. But I would love to do something that just performs magic, but also then teaches and then pushes it. That would be a very, very fun thing to do. Another thing is, I would love like this children's story I'm writing. I would love to. An element of it is this place, this really amazing place, and part of an element of the story is the idea this kid walks around with a map that is a representation of the place that pops out and things come out at you, and that would be really, really cool to actually make that map of this place that would pop out at you. So that's my answer to the question. Is I would like to take some fictional world I've created.
Yeah, and then illustrate it in that kind of larger than life interactive style.
Yep. If you have a question, go ahead and send it to Andrew@andrewmayne.com right now, and we'll try to answer that. And there's, I guess we kind of hit people a little bit late here. We've only got 2 questions. I kind of feel like a loser right now, to be honest with you.
Don't worry. This is what we need to do. We need to just have what's worked really, really well with some of our other stuff is just have a form, a URL that people can go to at any time. They don't have to open up a thing. They can just we tweet it out. It's right there. They can put in their questions, and that way we just have it in one silo that we can always go back to. Because these questions are evergreen. They're always a lot of the stuff here is timeless. It's going to be true today. It's going to be true tomorrow. And until you get into some of the technical sort of elements on like specifically what tools do you use, in general, a lot of it is stuff that can be good forever. I have a creative thing that I'm going through right now that I do want to talk about, though.
All right.
I wrote the Gohem Santa book, and I really enjoyed it, and I was very happy with the reaction to it. And one of my goals for this year was to write not just another book, but several more books. I wanted to write one more short story book, and then 2 to write actual novels, or at least full-length narrative stories, novellas maybe, but just something more longer form. So I sketched out.
I just lost you there.
Holographics is the magic of illusion. Amaze your friends with incredible holographic effects. With your parents' permission, record your friends and make them holograms. Be the master of illusion and bring interactive holograms to life. Holographics, like a life.
This is the birthday song. It isn't very long.
Are you coming back online? Question mark.